Welcome back. Let's now turn our attention to debate number 2. The recent fee hike by the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, met with strong opposition from several students who decided to go on a hunger strike. As the student protest enters its third day today, the administration issued a statement justifying the hike, which was met with further opposition. Now, the Premier Institute recently announced a fee hike of about 35%, which has allegedly infuriated the postgrad students. This agitation started in early July when the IIT Bombay administration first proposed a fee hike of nearly 35% for all their postgraduate demands. Now, what are the demands here as far as the students are concerned? The MTech and PhD students say that they want a complete rollback of this hike, which is about 35 to 45%. They say tuition fee does not cover the overall costs, and in fact operational expenses are more than previous hostel fee. Stipend is not enough to pay the fee, double collection of hostel fee as well. So this is really some of the points that have been mentioned as to why there needs to be a fee hike. But students have demanded for inclusion of student representation in the fee hike committee. But is 45% fee hike at a premier institute justified is the big question. Srishti is joining us from IIT Bombay right now. Srishti, thank you for joining us. What can you tell us? You've been, covering this entire protest. What is it that students are telling you, and what is the other side as well?
So I'm covering this since morning, as you all know. As we all know, that fee hike is the major issue which students are facing right now, and they're protesting regarding it only. The relay hunger strike is going on since last 3 days. As we all know, the fee hike majorly is from 2,500 to 5,000 rupees for the PhD courses. For MTech courses, it is raised to 5,000 rupees to 30,000 rupees, and this is a big chunk of amount which students have to pay, and this is disturbing students, and they are saying no for this fees hike, and they are asking it to be rolled back. Now, institute has further said that only 8% of its expenses are fulfilled by the fees collected from the students. The operational expenses will continue to be more than the fees collected despite the hike. Also, as per the proposal by the authorities of IIT Bombay, students with financial difficulties, including those whose stipend are delayed, may be eligible for the fee waiver. Also, the semester mess advance is the thing which authorities have reduced, which is 1,800 rupees. But the thing is, students want the complete rollback of fees. This is what they demand through the relay hunger strike at this point of moment. But the authorities are not ready for taking the fees back completely. They are asking that the maintenance of the institute is the reason to hike the fees, and we also know that the first time the proposal for hiking the fees was given in 2020, but due to COVID and other reasons, it wasn't. It didn't go well. Then after this, early July, as you said, it took discussions further. After that, only students are doing protest in big or small amount. But today, we can see since last 3 days, students are protesting. They are doing hunger strikes in IIT Bombay. But we also came to know that students are reluctant to talk. We got one student who was talking to us, but his identity wasn't revealed. The thing is, they are not allowed to talk to media unless and until they get permission from authorities. We tried to talk to the PRO also of IIT Bombay, but we didn't get response from their side also. So this is the situation on ground right now.
Right, so Srishti, at this point in time, from what you're picking up, is there any plan to have a dialogue, to have a conversation with the students? Because right now it seems to be at a deadlock.
Yes, students are saying that they are in conversation with authorities, but they will conclude the things a little later. The strike is going on, but at this point we are not able to go inside IIT Bombay and talk to students, so we cannot get the exact voices from there. As we get the permissions, we will show everything to our audience. live from the broadcast telecast.
All right, Srishti, thanks so much for getting us all of those details. But let's bring in some more perspective here. Furqan Qamar, a former advisor, Planning Commission of India, and Professor A K Mittal, former Secretary General, All India IIT Faculty Forum. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. Let me start with Furqan Qamar, your perspective on what we are seeing going on here, and whether or not this kind of a steep 35 to 45% hike is in fact justified in one go.
Very much for letting me in this program. I am a proponent of public funding of higher education. And lately we have been seeing a phenomena that there has been substantial decline in the funding of higher education, including these centrally funded technical institutions. And over a period of time, we have been seeing the fees rising. Now, I am not aware of the specific details of this present agitation and these plights of these students of the IIT Bombay, but generally I would say a few things. In India, people are so poor that we have to provide a ration to almost 80 crore people just to survive and sustain themselves. You add another 10-15% to that who are not at the destitution level but are poor. Can you expect them to afford full cost recovery of higher education or increased cost recovery of higher education? My feeling is that we cannot. Even if you defer the cost, still they will find it difficult to pay. So it's a national loss for people who aspire to receive best education, who somehow are able to make it to premier institution but are not able to afford fees. So today, the fees level of the IITs for general category student could be in the range of about 10 lakhs. For scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, it could be lower, about a fifth of that through cross-subsidization. So this is point number one. Secondly, globally at the PhD level, the fees are generally not charged, or the fees that is charged is very marginal. Rather, the students are paid scholarships, which is sufficient enough for them to meet their living expenditure and to other expenditure. So I am surprised to know that the fees for the PhD students are also being increased to a level where they are saying that their stipend would go into the fees. This is surprising. I think that is unwarranted. Similarly, the master's level program, first of all, we are facing a situation where most engineering graduates do not want to do engineering. They move on to management education, to finance program, to other issues. So that is a loss to the profession of engineering education. So we should value students who want to pursue engineering and technologies masters. And I think the master's level program also across the world is heavily subsidized. So I think the nation should realize that it is in the larger national interest to enhance public funding for higher education. If you have a couple of minutes, I'll share with you some of the quick data that, like, you are familiar that we have been talking about that 6% of the GDP would be spent on education. We are presently staring at a situation where only 2.8% of the GDP is being spent on education. The total expenditure on education as a percentage of total expenditure is only 9.5%. Not only in the general education, but also if you go by the public expenditure on higher education, the center and state put together, in 2010-11, we were allocating about 0.86%
Right.
on higher education,
Right.
and now we are spending only 0.52%. So when there is such decline in the funding of higher education, so what happens that institutions do not get money, and institutions have to survive, institutions have to sustain, institutions have to maintain quality. So the pressure is on recovering the user charges or
Yes.
the moving towards full cost recovery, which I think is not a good idea for our nation at this stage of our economic development.
Fair enough. Some extremely relevant and important points that you've raised there. But before I go across to Professor Mittal, let me quickly go across to our caller, RK Arya, who's joining us from Delhi. Hi, thanks so much for calling in. Go ahead. What would you like to say?
Debate which is going on that there is a fee hike of 35 to 40%
Yes.
for the IIT students.
Yes.
I think it is required given the fact that the allocation of GDP towards that is education is less than 2%, and the primary education should get the priority. And then we are seeing large number of universities providing technical education have come up. So these students, particularly, they are paying roughly around 25 lakhs to 40 lakhs. They are in some of the reputed institutions. Why can't they pay here when they expect the quality of education up to their satisfaction? So the country is expected to maintain the quality as well as provide the faculty as well as to upkeep the standard of the education there in the IIT. So I think this protest is illegitimate. It should not be there. And simply the government should go ahead with the increase of 40 to 45% for IIT straight away.
All right. Thank you so much for calling us with your perspective. Let me also go across to Professor Mittal. Now, your view on this entire matter in this case.
Thank you, Avni, for inviting me on your program. It's true that we have to support our youth. That is their future. And India has to do by all the means at our disposal. But we should, analyze the whole issue in a more comprehensive way. You think of the funds of the IIT. If you look any of the IITs, whether IIT Bombay, I was a student at IIT Bombay. I was also a student at the IIT Kanpur, and I worked at the IIT Delhi. So if you look at the funds and finance of any IIT, typically you can divide in three broad categories. One is a big account where the government of India money comes, which comes salaries and all the funds for equipment, etc. And there the institute earns the fees. Now another account is, which is a hostels account. All the IITs maintain this account at a arm's length from the main account. Now, when you talk of fee and charge, we have to understand what is the difference between fee and charge. For example, in Mumbai at the IIT, there are hostel charges. For example, mess fees and the maintenance. Now, maintenance of the hostels and the buildings is very costly, and who is going to pay? Now, third thing is that, there is another rhetoric that India is a poor country and we have to support, we cannot pay. And let us understand, a poor man who buys his grocery and this person pays the GST, and same money we utilize when I go to IIT as a student. Now here, whole issue, if I look at the IIT Bombay, it is that the fees has been increased from 2,500 to 25,000. So let's forget for the time being 35% or 45%. It means we are agitating because we are not willing to pay 25,000 rupees per semester for kind of education we are provided. Now, it is only in India. I am telling this in very important issue. It is only in India that scholarships are fully funded and provided for all the programs. What do I mean by all the programs? Let's say in IIT Bombay, you have a civil engineering department, computer science, mechanical, biotechnology, this and that. Each department may have many MTech program, and each MTech program may take 20 or 25 or 15 students, and everybody has to be provided with a fellowship. Does it happen in all the Ivy League and top universities in Europe or USA? It happens only in India. The whole issue is another big issue. In the MTech program, it is 4 semesters. Out of the 4 semesters, first 2 semesters, the students go to the class and they study and their examination. Now, next 1 year, there is virtually no classroom study.
Right.
They have to do the research.
Right.
And how do you rate an IIT? You want IIT to be top, right? You want IIT to compete with Harvard or with the LSE or with the MIT or Cornell or Caltech. But if you see the research output, that is another thing to be researched, and we have to look whether students can put it. Now, when you pay the money for each credit, what I earn each credit and each hour in the institute, I know how I pay so much, I become very sincere.
Right.
For example, if you look at just one more minute, Avni.
Yes.
If you look at any hospital, the junior and senior doctors, they are the PG students and they run the hospital. So if you go to any US university or Europe, technical education, the departments are run by the graduate students. So that kind of a feeling we had to have if you want to see the good quality research output from the IIT. So it is not only the issue of fees.
Yes.
That's very important, negligible issue for me.
Yes.
But for me, the more important issue is the quality of scientific output from the institute, which is a subtle issue which probably a separate time is required.
Yes.
That accountability is missed when you give everything free.
Yes. Fair enough. That's a fair point as well. We've got another caller, Leo, calling us from Kunur. Leo, go ahead. What would you like to say?
My daughter studied for PG. She studied in Cranfield University, UK.
Okay.
I paid a fees of 25 lakhs. Immediately, within 1 week, the income tax department called me and asked me where the source is. One. Secondly, they are giving technology to 1,200 companies worldwide, including our HL. So you are sure of a job immediately after passing out from the university. And every month you have to write 20 exams. And they are given practical training for 3 months. And her previous class in the aerospace department were responsible for converting 300-seater plane to 900-seater plane. The technology, the money they got from that technology is the biggest ever for the technology transfer. So you are sure of a job, you are sure of getting a job and very well paid after this thing. So I don't think even our IITs are that level. So the fees, when you get a fees, you should provide the technology. And the entire the PhD was sponsored by a company. So she didn't pay a single paisa after that.
Okay, all right.
So when we pay, we want to give technology, and the students should be able to provide the technology plus the fees that should be comparatively.
Okay.
Because I don't think IITs are able to provide technology to 1,000 companies or at least 100 companies. So we have to reach that level first.
Yes.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much for calling us and sharing your views. Natarajan is calling us from Chennai. Thank you for calling in. Please go ahead. All right. I think we've lost the line with Natarajan. But all right. Let me, in fact, go back to Mr. Mr. Furqan at this point in time. What Professor Mittal says, your quick reaction to that?
Avni, there are two strands of ideologies. One ideology says that education provides private return, particularly if people study in IITs and therefore they should be willing to pay and they should be willing to afford. On the other hand, there is a second strand that in addition to the private return that people get, there is also a social return. Society as a whole benefits. And that argument suggests that it is the society. Society would be the public, our representatives, the taxpayers' money, the education is paid for, if not fully, at least substantially. If you have 30 seconds, I'll just say that I recently interacted with a Norwegian, and he was asking me that I have heard that there are so many private universities in India. How do they survive? I said they charge fees from a student. And then he was asking me that why would anybody pay fees for higher education? The student is giving his time. The student is studying for the goods of the nation, for the larger good of the nation. and therefore it is the government that should pay. It means in Norway, in many other Scandinavian countries, European countries, the education up to the highest level is taken as a responsibility of the government. I think it's a matter of priority. I was recently analyzing the total receipts of the government of India. Despite pandemic, the revenue receipts and the non-revenue receipts have gone up. And out of the total receipts, how much we are spending? We are spending less than 1% of the total receipts on higher education.
Right.
I think there is certainly a scope to enhance allocation for higher education.
All right.
And
Yes.
that is in the larger national interest. I agree that there could be people. I mean, our average per capita income is ranging between 80,000 per year to about 1.5 lakhs per year.
Right.
What is the maximum fees that a person can pay is equivalent to the per capita income if this person doesn't eat and doesn't pay for anything else. Now, so there is a national limit at the macro level, and I think the nation should realize our education cannot afford to be elitist.
Yes.
We have to be inclusive.
Yes.
We have to ensure
Yes.
that all meritorious need to be provided opportunity to pursue higher education, and
Right.
public funding is a method and a means of doing that.
Absolutely, fair enough. On that note, we're completely out of time, but I'd like to thank both of you for joining us and sharing your perspective on this extremely important issue at this point in time. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of The Urban Debate. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned to Mirror Now.